Police are back inside Royal Lodge. A day after his dramatic arrest, officers continued searching the 30-room former home of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, deep inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. Aerials show police vehicles moving through the estate, officers on the grounds, and activity continuing well into Friday. Mountbatten-Windsor was held for nearly 11 hours on Thursday on suspicion of misconduct in public office, linked to his friendship with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He has not been charged, and as of tonight, he remains under investigation. Police have completed their search at Sandringham, where he is currently staying, but Royal Lodge, the home he occupied for decades with his ex-wife, former Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, until his eviction earlier this month, remains the focus. The accusations center on claims that while serving as UK trade envoy, he shared confidential trade information with Epstein. Emails released by the U.S. Department of Justice last month appeared to show him forwarding sensitive material about official visits and investment opportunities, including reconstruction projects in Afghanistan. Legal experts now warn this could take a very long time. Speaking to Sky, legal commentator Joshua Rosenberg said, quote, "This could take many months, perhaps even years." Rosenberg explained that prosecutors would have to prove Mountbatten-Windsor was acting in a public office at the time and that he willfully misconducted himself.
The police are continuing their investigations. They're continuing to examine Royal Lodge. They will then move on and look for other documents elsewhere. After all, he was trade envoy for 10 years, started 25 years ago, I think. And so there's plenty of material in government archives, in government records, perhaps in palace records, that they will want to look through before they can decide whether they have enough evidence. But in the meantime, as far as we know, he's free to carry on with his life and wait to see what happens. He's quite a performance. So I think this arrangement now really gets round that problem. He's free to carry on with his life. He's not going to go anywhere. He's not a flight risk. He can carry on. They will carry on. And obviously they will want to proceed as quickly as possible. Everybody will. But as far as I can see, there are no restrictions, no time limits. It's all being dealt with in rather a civilized way. They must do their job. And he just waits, as I say, to see whether they will find enough evidence, whether he's actually going to be charged at some point in the future. No surprise he wasn't charged yesterday. The police clearly don't have enough evidence for that. And he will then respond, if he is charged, to the proceedings, which will no doubt, if that goes that far, take him to court. Yesterday, this is what lawyers call a common law offence, laid down by the judges over the centuries, and one which is perhaps in some ways rather vague. And so the Crown Prosecution Service will be advising the police on the sort of evidence they need to look for. To be fair, let's start with the first requirement. It applies to a public officer. Now, what does that mean? Somebody who holds public office. It's been applied in the past to police officers, to prison officers who behave improperly, occasionally perhaps to government ministers, members of parliament, others who have high office in some public position. I think it would probably apply to a trade envoy, but then you have to show that the public officer was acting as such, so acting in his role as a trade envoy. Then you've got to show that he willfully neglected to perform his duty or willfully misconducted himself. Well, what was his duty? He might say his duty was to ensure that the trading position of the United Kingdom was enhanced by what he was doing, and it was really up to him to judge when to pass on information to people in order to generate trade. It also has to be done to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder. How does one define the level of public trust required? And of course, without reasonable excuse or justification. So that's a defence that he could put. He could say he was acting reasonably. Then it will be tried ultimately in the Crown Court. It's not something that can be tried by magistrates. It's what we call an indictable offence, one that can be tried only by a judge and jury. And obviously, if there were to be a trial and the trial goes ahead, he would be represented by counsel and the prosecution would be represented and they would try to argue their case. And it's more complicated because at some point they've got to prove to the court, perhaps at a pre-trial hearing, that this does come within that definition. And that requires going back through past decided cases. And so that could be quite a complicated process. What all this means is it's going to take many months, perhaps even years. Only if he shows that he's got no money, but crucially only if he is unable to pay for lawyers of his own. The point is that although everybody is entitled to legal aid if they're facing a criminal charge, particularly a serious criminal charge, you're not going to get the very best barristers doing work at legal aid rates, which are very low. So if you really want the top defence lawyers at the criminal bar, you're going to have to pay. And there are reports that the king is willing to fund his brother's defence. That would be, in many ways, seen as the right thing to do, I think. And therefore, it seems to be unlikely that he will present himself as having no money and requiring legal aid.
The alleged offense, misconduct in public office, is a common law offense. The optics are severe. Unmarked police vans entering Royal Lodge, a royal residence searched, and one of the most tumultuous days in modern royal history still unfolding. Mountbatten-Windsor, stripped of his royal titles by his brother Charles III last October, was photographed slouched in the back of a car after his release Thursday evening. While investigators continue their search west of London, other UK police forces are also examining aspects of his Epstein-linked dealings. No charges, no exoneration, just an expanding investigation and a royal family once again under the shadow of the Epstein scandal. And tonight, the search of Royal Lodge continues.